Okay, everyone, I'd like you to take a second and close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale. What can you smell? And what do you hear? Are you paying attention to cues that you didn't notice a moment ago? Now think about your pet cat snoozing on your bed or your goldfish fluttering around in the tank. How are they taking in the world around them? This is precisely what I think about on a daily basis. So my research focuses on how other animals perceive the world. So as animals have fine-tuned senses that process the world in ways we could never fathom. I ask questions like, how do bats find their food? Especially flying around in the dark, cluttered forest, looking for fruit under a stagnant leaf. Or how about animals that are no longer with us? Is it possible to imagine a dinosaur brain and how it processed environmental signals of the ancient world? Well, I'm here to tell you that it is possible. With imaging methods I'm developing, we can now visualize structures in ways we never could before. So for example, in a normal CT scan of this alligator head, we would have only been able to visualize bone. However, through a method called DICE CT, you can stain the specimen with iodine, CT scan it, and then get incredible resolution of the soft tissue inside. So not only the bones, but also muscle, neurons, and blood vessels. So now I can actually peek inside the head of pretty much any animal and measure the desired structures of interest, including many sensory structures. So here you can see the brain, retina, nasal cavity, and tongue in great detail of this juvenile alligator. Now, I use this approach to test whether these smell structures differ in bats that feed on plants versus those that feed on insects, because plant bats primarily use olfaction while insect bats use echolocation. And for different species, I have been able to visualize and quantify in 3D the different tissues inside the nasal cavity, responsible for detecting different odors. And indeed, you can see just how much these structures vary, suggesting a much more well-developed sense of smell in plant visiting bats. So on the left, we have a much more well-developed tissue and curling that increases the surface area for the sense of smell, compared to the insect feeding bat on the right. But what can they teach us about dinosaur brains, especially when only bony tissue is available from fossil? So using data of closely related species, such as birds and reptiles, I infer brain architecture of dinosaurs. Now there are different brain regions that receive different signals from the environment, whether it's vision or hearing and smell. And these are what are coded in different colors here. But you can see what I want to show you is that they're highly variable across different animals. So I actually use the embryos of birds and reptiles and pioneering imaging techniques to visualize the internal organization of different species. So here, for example, is a quail embryo showing the different brain regions in different colors. And different staining techniques can reveal different phenomena. So here's a lizard embryo with its bony elements stained, and we can see how the skull develops alongside the brain. On January 15th of this year, my work was actually recently highlighted in National Geographic. And a dream come true, right? Well, I'd say until I started reading the comments on Instagram, how dinosaurs perceive the world, really? Sounds like a super useful way to use research money. And the list goes on. So of course, my first reaction was, wow, people are cold. But it really did force myself to stop and think, why does this actually really matter? Well, it just so happens that you never really know when something's going to become relevant. About a year ago exactly today, two major patterns started emerging. One, bats were the predicted host for the coronavirus outbreak, and two, everyone was losing their sense of smell. So suddenly being an expert in bat noses was becoming increasingly valuable. And through a recent grant that I've received from the NSF, I'm actually using these imaging approaches to visualize the tissue that is ground zero for the SARS-CoV-2 infection, which is shown in pink here. Had I not been studying the noses of the plant visiting bats or developing the methods for the Dinosaur Brain project, we would have never had the methods or the data for this project. So in conclusion, understanding a diversity of sensory structures is critical to understanding our own. And it's not the job of the Nat Geo Instagram followers to understand that, but rather it's up to us as scientists to communicate that notion. And investing in basic research just for the sake of knowledge is always worth it to me, as you never know what you're going to discover. It just may turn out that bat noses and dinosaur brains can change the world.